Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another episode of Healthwise. It's Ramzan, and in Ramzan, when you just switch on the TV screen, you see all sorts of cooking shows where people are making really yummy things. And you can't wait for iftar where you're going to try this scrumptious meal. And just imagine what happens if you're waiting for iftar, and when the iftar comes up, you just can't taste anything. You have the most expensive perfumes on your dressing table, yet you can't smell them. Yes, I'm talking about a very important faculty of ours, a sense that we ignore so easily and take so for granted, the ear, nose, and throat, because we are smelling and tasting. And with COVID, what the most important, a very common symptom was the loss of smell and taste. And a lot of people suffered from this even post-COVID. So today we thought we'd invite an ENT specialist, and we thank Dr. Junaid Shahzad for coming over and giving us time. Welcome to the show, Dr. Junaid. And before we start off with you, we're going to watch a little report on the common ear, nose, and throat problems so that people know what we're going to talk about today. Let's have a look at the report.
There are many different ear, nose, and throat, commonly known as ENT disorders, and an even greater variety of characteristic symptoms. Not everyone will experience the same set of symptoms or have them as instantly. In some cases, a doctor or ENT specialist will be needed to make the correct diagnosis and offer the appropriate treatment. Ear infections are one of the most prevalent common ENT disorders. They occur when the germs become trapped inside the inner ear. A tiny canal that originates in the ear and drains into the back of the throat usually keeps the unwanted germs out. If this tube is too small or become cloggy by fluid and mucus, bacteria or other microbes can enter the ear and cause an infection. Strep throat occurs when the throat and the surrounding structure become inflamed with the germs. While strep throat is a common infection, many other infections have the same symptoms. Sinus occurs when a germ multiplies in the four hollow recesses of the skull that surrounds your eye and nose. The infection can become trapped, causing inflammation, pressure, and pain. Headache, cough, nasal discharge, congestion, fever, fatigue, toothache are some of the common problems of ENT. Sometimes sleep disorders can also be related to ENT. The majority of people will experience one or more of these disorders in their lifetime. While visiting with your physician, discussion of your symptoms may help your doctor to come up with a diagnosis of ENT disorder.
Welcome back to the show. Thank you very much for watching. And today we have our ENT specialist, Dr. Junaid Budaz. Welcome to the show. So let's start off with this loss of smell and taste that's so common. And it's really bothering people because not only was it there during the 14 days that they had COVID, but even after that, a lot of people are complaining of this loss of smell and taste for almost 3 to 4 months and 6 months. So what do you have to say about this?
Yes, exactly. Basically, in the COVID-19 cases, the olfactory nerve, the nerve which is involved for the smell, that is involved, and the loss of smell is a very common symptom in the acute cases of the COVID, and also in the post-COVID cases, loss of smell is reported. Along with the loss of smell, there is very important issue, the loss of taste or altered taste. The altered taste means the person is eating something and he is feeling something else. And also with the loss of smell, similarly, this thing is happening, we call that a parosmia, that is also the altered smell, that the person is, for example, smelling a perfume, but he is having the bad odor or bad smell.
So it's in his own nose, like, when
Yes.
we were young, they used to say, the smell isn't from me, it's in your own nose.
Yes, basically.
So in their own nose.
Yes.
Okay.
So basically, it is due to the COVID-19 virus that causes the damage in the olfactory nerve. And it is, in few cases, it is reported that 14 to 20 days it recovers itself. But
what can they do so that this taste and smell comes back earlier? Is there anything like eating some ginger or spices? Or
basically, the very important in the evening that needs to be smelled for 20 minutes.
So you've heard this from the doctor himself, from the ENT specialist, that you need to stock up on all these special kind of different essential oils, and then you start smelling them in the morning and in the evening daily, and then it improves your sense of smell, and then you can actually choose which one, Chanel or Romance or whatever it is that you want to choose. And now you have an excuse not to blame your wife for her lousy iftar if she makes it, because it's your fault that you can't taste it. She's doing an excellent excellent job. Coming down to the next question. Nowadays, everybody is so scared of a sneeze. Anybody sneezes anywhere and people are after them. Oh, you have COVID, you have COVID.
Yes.
So what would you like to say about these symptoms of sneezing and cough and, runny eyes? Is it only COVID or are there any other reasons?
No, that is not because of the COVID only. In the allergic rhinitis, which is very common nowadays, and the pollen season, especially in the Islamabad, Pindi, it is very common, allergic rhinitis. And allergic rhinitis have also few symptoms that is overlapping with the COVID, like sneezing, very frequent sneezing, and itching in the nose, and watery discharge coming, water coming from the eyes and also from the nose. And sometimes patient have the shortness of breath also and the cough also. So these symptoms can be due to pollen also.
Okay.
So once a patient, if he is diagnosed with the allergic rhinitis or asthma, then he can be safe.
He can be sneezing and he doesn't have to be wearing a mask, right, all the time.
Yes, exactly.
So what would you say about allergic rhinitis? Because a lot of people think it's just the flu and they start taking a lot of antibiotics and antivirals and all of that. So what would you tell them? How do you diagnose allergic rhinitis and establish it as an allergy? And then what is the anti-allergic treatment that you take for it?
First of all, antibiotics have no role in the allergic rhinitis.
Very
Antivirals,
important.
very important thing. And the most important thing is, again, avoidance. The mask we use for the COVID, that is also effective against the
Against
pollens.
the pollen. Okay.
And the second thing, you need to go for the specialist, and he will diagnose the allergic rhinitis, and he can give you antihistamines also. And certain antihistamines are commonly used by the peoples like Avil, etc., and they are very effective. And second thing is that the surgeon, the ENT specialist, will tell you the rest of the treatment like nasal sprays and etc. But antibiotics, antivirals have no role in the treatment of
So
the
does
allergic
asthma
rhinitis.
also fall in this category of allergies,
Yes,
or does it not?
in the 50% of the cases of the allergic rhinitis, asthma is also reported.
Okay, so all these people with allergic rhinitis and asthma who have been prescribed some sort of inhalers or nasal spray, what would you tell us about their usage, overusage, side effects due to nasal sprays, and certain precautions while using these sprays, like washing your mouth and all of that?
Yes, exactly. This is very important. First of all, the very notorious spray, the Zynosine, I will like to mention that this spray causes the addiction, and this spray should not be used more than 4 days or 5 days. The bad thing is that it is available over the counter and people use by themselves. The other spray, like steroid sprays,
Right.
the peoples are very scared of the steroids, but the nasal sprays in the steroid form, they are very good, very effective, and they have very few side effects. And the newer steroids, the good steroids, they have very less side effects, and they can be used for 3 months, 6 months, etc. And as you mentioned, in the patient of asthma, the inhalers have the side effects, like they can cause the oral candidiasis, fungal infection. Always inhalers should be used with the spacers.
So that spacer is that little long
Yes,
unit that you see, and then you have to rinse your mouth after using a spray as well. What do you suggest about these saline drops that people use for babies? What is the purpose of using those drops for a stuffy nose?
Saline drops is basically only for the cleaning of the nose. The crusting that stick in the nose, for cleaning of that saline is used. Nothing else. There is no other purpose of
Coming
saline
to
drops.
crusting and all of this, the weather has been extremely dry in the past. Now it's raining, thankfully. But because of this dryness, a lot of people were having nosebleeds. And it's very common in children to start bleeding from the nose. What would you suggest about this epistaxis?
Basically, in the dry weather, the mucosa, the epithelium of the nose is very delicate, and it is damaged due to the dry weather, and that causes the epistaxis. Protection against the dry weather is important. Like they can use the olive oil in the nose, and there is other solutions like liquid paraffin can be used. Like you mentioned, the saline
What
saline
about
drops.
humidifier, the role of a humidifier, or
Humidifier
having
is-
something in a room that's,
Yes,
you know...
that's also very effective. So against the dryness, there should be a protection against the dryness. But nothing else should be used. Nothing else is needed. Only the olive oil, the oiling lubrication is important. And in the children's, the epistaxis can be due to other causes also. So that need to be examined.
And what is the ideal way? To pinch the nose on the top, or how do you do it? Or you put them, like recline them, or you...
No.
How should you, what should you
Pinching
do?
is very important.
Okay.
And wash it with the cold water first, and then pinch the nose.
Does that onion have any role? They say, you should place an onion somewhere or nothing? Nothing of that sort. Okay, all right. And the next question is a very important question because children are home and they're very bored and they don't know what to do. So what they think of doing is they stick up a little bead or a pencil up their nose or up their ear all the time. So do you have to face these cases?
Yes, very commonly, and especially in the 3 to 5 years of the age, they report commonly, and they put the beads or anything like that in the ears or in the nose.
So if something gets stuck in there, what is your advice to a parent? Like, what should they try to remove it themselves?
No,
or what should
never try to remove, because the foreign body in the nose or ear, it's not that kind of emergency. You can wait for few hours or even 1 day. In the ear foreign body, you can wait for 3 days.
No, please don't say that. They'll keep waiting forever.
So there will be no problem. But it should be removed from the specialist, and it should not be removed from the inexperienced doctor or like the GP. It should always be removed from the ENT specialist, because they can cause the damage to the tympanic membrane.
Okay.
That can cause permanently hearing damage.
When you're saying damage to the tympanic membrane, we are so fond of using these pins, these black pins that you see all over my dupatta in our ear all the time, or if we have a ball pen, we're putting it in our ear. So what would you tell all our listeners about cleaning the ear and wax in the ear and this habit of using cotton buds all the time?
Basically, the ear cleaning is natural process. Naturally, the ear canal is made like that it cleans itself. So there is no need of putting anything in the ear, and like earbuds or pins, etc. And the ear usually clean by itself. But the important thing is then that whenever you feel that there is too much wax in the ear and you feel the blockage, that needs to be cleaned by the ENT specialist.
So what is exactly too much wax? Like, how do you decide that you have
that
too much
will cause
wax?
the blockage
and
of
you
the
will
ear
even
and
have a hearing loss.
hearing
I've
loss.
heard a lot of people are suffering from even hearing loss due to post-COVID. Is that true?
Yes, that is true, but few cases are reported, and that is due to the nerve damage. Again, the nerve for the hearing, that is damaged due to the COVID-19.
Okay, I'd like to ask you a question about this Bluetooth and the extended use of phones and then headphones and children listening to music all the time. Does it affect the ear in any way?
Yes, it can affect the ear, and it can affect in the two ways. It will cause the too much wax formation, the natural cleaning process will be affected, and also it can damage the nerve of the hearing. So they should be used, but they should be used with the precautions and with the care.
And what is this practice about, putting in oil inside the ear, and sometimes a bug goes into the ear and people are putting in all sorts of oils they have. So what would you say about this?
No, this is good practice.
Oh, it is a good practice.
One thing
and
is good.
Oil?
No, olive oil is good only.
Okay.
Nothing else should be used. And as you mentioned that if the living foreign body is there, like a bug or any insects goes in the ear, the oils are very effective. They will kill the insect. And
so how much oil do you put in there?
3-4 drops is enough.
Oh, 3-4 drops. You don't
but
put in
then
the bottle.
Go for the doctor that he should remove the bug.
Go and extract it. This is such interesting information for all of you out there listening to it. Now let's come to a very common thing, these enlarged tonsils that we hear of, and children are going for tonsillectomy and then they get to suck on the ice cream and all of that. So how common is tonsillitis? How important is it to get these tonsils, enlarged tonsils removed? And how are tonsils different from adenoids and polyps and all these terms that we keep listening to?
Basically, tonsils are the lymphoid tissues. They are normal tissues in the throat of every person. Okay. But if they are infected due to some bacteria and that is prolonged for more than 1 to 2 years, they can be removed with the tonsillectomy.
And you advise that they should be removed?
Yes, they can be removed. Once they are acting against your body, they should be removed.
And what is the post-care after a tonsillectomy, for example?
Tonsillectomy, basically, one thing important about the tonsillectomy is that after the tonsillectomy, we advise the patient for the eating the ice cream also.
Okay, yeah. I remember that part.
One thing I like to mention here that enlarged tonsils can affect the growth of the child also.
Oh,
okay,
right.
so if your child is not eating properly and he's having the enlarged tonsils and recurrent infections, then it's better to get the tonsillectomy.
And how are they different from adenoids?
Adenoids are basically the tissues behind the nose, and they cause the snoring. The most important symptom is the snoring. If your child is snoring, then you should consult.
And what is a deviated nasal septum, a DNS, a very common thing, and people come over with it, they're snoring, they have this grunting voice.
The DNS is basically the bone inside the nose that is deviated to one side, left or right.
And it can be fixed.
Yes, it will cause the blockage in the nose, and patient will continuously snores and continuously complain that his nose is blocked, so he can go for the surgery.
And this recurrent sinusitis, I keep getting a lot of patients with dark circles under their eyes, and the reason is this recurring sinusitis that they have. Their sinuses are completely congested. Apart from steam and all these anti-inflammatory things, what is the best way to deal with this constant sinusitis pressure and recurrent infection?
Basically, the cause of the sinusitis should be ruled out first of all. That can be DNS also, and can be polyps or recurrent bacterial infections. Okay. So first the cause should be treated, and the most important treatment of the sinusitis is the steroids, nasal steroids.
Okay.
It is worldly evidence based that the treatment of the sinusitis is nasal steroids. Steroids can be used with the safety precautions up to 6 months also. If the sinusitis is not cured with these steroids, then we can go for the surgery also. The endoscopic sinus surgery is commonly done nowadays.
So with all the mothers howling and yelling at their children at home, and the teachers who have to speak in a loud voice, and singers and people like us who have to keep speaking throughout the day despite fasting and having this really dry throat, what are your suggestions regarding hoarseness? Because hoarseness of voice is a huge problem, yes. Singer nodules and all of that. So what would you suggest? What kind of fluids do we take? How do we take care of our voice?
Yes. Basically, this is a professional voice abuse basically. And it happens in the newscasters, also in the hosts, etc. And in the teachers, it is very common. In the speakers and singers also, it is very common.
As well.
Politicians.
Okay.
So first of all, you need to care your voice. If you are having any kind of cough or upper respiratory tract infections, you should avoid speaking a lot, and you should have a speech rest or voice rest. Okay, and if you are having any program, or if you are going for any scheduled program, then you can have a sip of warm water, or you can have a warm drinks like kava, etc., and that will be very effective.
So otherwise, would you suggest cold drinks are better or warm drinks?
Warm drinks are very better, and cold drinks should be avoided. And also steam is very effective, and hydration is very important.
Drinking lots of water.
Drinking a lot of water is important.
And during Rosa, then what do you do? And what about gargles?
Comes in the that is sticky mucus in the throat. That is gargles are effective against them. But the warm water and good hydration is very good for the voice problems.
Okay, and what about these lozenges that we use? Are they good for us or are they not?
They are good and have good fruits, but avoid spicy foods and oily foods, especially in the Ramzan. Try to avoid the oily foods. If you are taking the oily foods, then along with that, drink plenty of water. That will keep your throat
It'll
healthy.
Keep it moist.
Yes.
All right. So what would be your departing message to our viewers regarding their ear, nose and throat health? Just a short message for our viewers as an ENT specialist.
I will just advise the patients that don't put anything into the ear unless it is bigger than the elbow. Okay.
All right. That's a very good advice. Thank you so much, Dr. Junaid, for joining us. And I hope you enjoyed listening to all of this. And you know what you should be putting into our ear? Only good voices and good talk. Anybody who's saying something good and nice like we are, that's what you need to put into your ear. And your nose has to be right where it is and not in anybody else's business. And that's when your ear, nose and throat remain extremely normal and healthy. Thank you very much for watching yet another episode of Healthwise. We'll meet you tomorrow at the same time, same place. Keep watching. Allah Hafiz.